So today, we're emulating some film. So a couple weeks ago, Dehancer reached out to me seeing if I wanted to do a partnership with them in exchange for a fair and honest review of their DaVinci Resolve plugin. Now, I'm far from a professional colorist, and if I'm being fully honest with myself, I'm pretty novice, still learning a lot. But I still feel like I'm a good person to review something like this just because I've been shooting film for so long, and I've also been on a more involved journey with filmmaking and the technical side of color grading and understanding the balance between technical and creative looks. I am a simple director when it comes to color. I love the look of film and I always have. And on some level, I think it's honestly been the pursuit of film that has underscored my whole journey with photography, even back in 2017 when I started shooting with my crappy $200 Rebel T2i. I was looking and trying to get my photos to look like that film look. So I heard about Dehancer before they even reached out to me. And in the context that I knew it as, was always a pretty powerful and high budget plugin, kind of reserved for higher budget music videos, commercials, and film productions. So when they asked me to look into this review, I was a little bit nervous just when it came to learning the program and understanding the learning curve of how to get a good image out of a program like this. Very quickly, I realized how that wasn't the case and how incredibly easy it is to use, how easy it is to learn and pick up and manipulate, and how quick it is to get a good looking image from your base level Rec 709 color transform. I have a lot of specific thoughts about this plugin, so I think the best way for me to break them down is if I actually jump in DaVinci Resolve and kind of demonstrate my process that I've figured out for myself in these last couple weeks. So here we are in DaVinci. Just added my own quick little note tree, and I actually got this from the Dehancer website, I believe. They have their own tutorials and own ways to set up and configure their plugin. So the first step that I usually do before I even go into Dehancer using this plugin is pretty standard, pretty basic stuff, making my primary adjustments, add in my color space transform to bring it to Rec 709. And then for this clip specifically, I probably want to just bring up the whites a little bit and bring down our black point, but this is exposed pretty properly already, so not many adjustments I have to make. I just tend to like to add a little bit of green in the tint for whatever reason. I just think that makes it nice and pleasing. Then when I'm ready to come into Dehancer, drag that onto my node, and you'll notice that it just throws on like a quick little profile. This is nowhere near the beginning. It adds like a ton of grain, and like I think this is just the default profile that they throw on there, which let's see what it is. So it's Vision 3 250D. So you can see here that there's tons of tabs. I'm just gonna honestly close them all for now so we can keep it pretty simple for you watching. And I'll open these in kind of the process of how I'm gonna craft my image. So the first thing that I'll obviously choose is my film profile. Vision 3 250D is the default, but that's not one I use a lot. I like to use 50D is pretty good, or I've been using a lot of 200T. I really love the look of 200T, and specifically you get this little slider here, very true to motion picture, or very true to picture developing how it was back when it was just film, and being able to push and pull your development. So I'll usually do 200T, and I'll honestly just pull it all the way. I just love the way that looks, and you can always preview how your image is looking with the enabled or disabled tab right there. I think that's perfect. Very easy way to see the difference. So that's what I'll usually start with. But just because I've been doing a lot of 200T, let's do a 50D look actually, just because it's a little bit different. So the next step that I usually do right after the film is the print. So the print is where you can see your print films. So this is obviously towards the end of your pipeline when you're scanning and developing your motion picture film. What film do you want printed? What film do you want it printed on and projected through? So you have the classic Kodak 2383. Get your classic orange and teal look going. There's a nice Fujifilm 3513. I'm not too familiar with print profiles, but I know there's another classic one. You also have Cineon Film Log. So if you want to work from more of a scanned negative aspects, because I believe Cineon Film Log is the profile that they'll digitize negatives in and deliver to you when you're ready to color. But my personal favorite for just everyday shots like this, where you're just in a naturally lit environment, it's just a natural day, natural lighting, is my Endura glossy paper. For whatever reason, I just feel like this looks the most natural. This looks the best. There isn't much change you can see there, obviously, with it enabled and disabled. But whenever I'm able to go in and make exposure adjustments, I'm still feels like I'm exposing or adjusting the camera colors versus if I go to 2383, this looks like a profile. This looks like a LUT that's been been added. So I'm not a biggest fan of that. I love the glossy paper though, and I believe the glossy paper is from the film photography world. So instead of your print film that you'll project your film through, you'll choose your paper that you'll want to enlarge onto, and that's I think what it's trying to replicate. And it's just the glossy Kodak Endura glossy paper. When I was in photo school, I was a glossy paper fan. Matte paper is pretty cool, but glossy and luster paper, just the sheen you get is really pretty, and that's the print profile that I usually go for in Dehancer. So once I've gotten that into place, exposure's looking all right still. So the next I go to is the developer. And so this is just a way to, again, kind of adjust your contrast. I usually come in here and add saturation because I haven't done that yet to any of my clips, to none of my nodes. My white balance node doesn't have any saturation, just white balance. So I'll usually boost the color quite a bit. And I feel like already there, you're getting a really pretty looking image. The colors are very natural. So once I get the saturation to where I like it, it's pretty good there. I'll go into the color head. So color head is very similar to other photo manipulation software like Photoshop or Lightroom, or even back then when you were scanning your film, a lot of scanners had the ability to add blue or yellow, magenta, green, cyan, and red. So I'll just go in here and again, adjust the colors to whatever I like. This is so subjective, this part. It's really just about the look you want to craft, the things you look for in your own images. So here I usually add a little bit magenta, a little bit of yellow, and then a little bit of red. And it's very slight, but it just brings out certain types of colors you want. This is a very late afternoon feeling. I want more warmer tones in there, and so that's what I'm trying to do with the color head there. A big characteristic I find with film is compression, and DaVinci or Dehancer's has a tab called film compression where it's very simple. Oops, just turn the grade off. It's a very simple way to make sure your highlights aren't clipping and obviously your shadows as well. And very helps a lot with that very digital look, that very contrasty, sharp digital image. So I always turn the film compression on. It's rare that I ever even adjust it. I feel like it does enough right as is with these parameters, but obviously they're there for you to adjust. You can obviously set your own white point and really craft the type of compression you want. And then to me, expand is like one of the last things you'll do contrast wise. This is where you can kind of set your black point towards the end of it all, after your compression, after your color boost and your print profile and everything. So you can set your white point so your whites are actually white and your blacks are actually black. The next film characteristic I usually move to is film grain. Obviously, film grain is one of the most important characteristics when it comes to film. This is going to be a general rule for most of my film characteristics, is I tend to use the 65mm option, which is trying to emulate essentially large format filmmaking, or like IMAX, for example. You'll find that the grain in like the 65mm option is very soft. It's very fine. So I'll usually do something like 65mm ISO 500. So obviously, the higher ISO, the more grain you'll get. And so if you go to something like 8mm 500 ISO, you're gonna get really big chunky grains and grains of film, or I guess grains of silver halide, which would have been if it was actually naturally film. And you can kind of see that play out 16mm, 35mm, and 65 is usually my favorite. Film grain can be pretty situational, but I'll add it here just for you, just so you can see. And then I move on to halation. Again, same exact type of scenario here, where you'll see all of your profiles. I tend to find myself always going to 65mm, 70mm option. Just the most pleasing to me, the most constrained, but the most natural in that same way. And I also find myself pushing the amplify up just so you can see it more, just because there's moments where it's not very noticeable. But again, even if I turn the remjet off, it starts to bloom a little bit too much for my liking. You can see up here, or even you can really see it like Super 8, no remjet. Like that is crazy. Like that is way too much. You're looking like Phoenix 200 right there. Like that's a lot. And you can see that again, 16mm, no remjet. It's not the worst. I'm just not the biggest fan of the super glowy look. So my go-to, again, I feel like up here is the best way to tell the difference between like 16mm and 75mm. It's just a very subtle halation. Maybe I can even do no remjet. Yeah, I like that. So 65mm, remjet, no remjet, kind of situational based off the look, but that's generally where I go.
Oh, they're gonna play again. You know they're gonna play again.
And then moving down to bloom, it's the same deal. So again, 65mm is my go-to. I'll usually amplify this as well. Just kind of find a spot where I like it. I don't want it to be too overbearing. See, that I think is a little bit too much. So maybe around 56. It's just a nice amount of bloom. And again, it's a very realistic bloom. It's still a little bit too much. So I'll bring it down to like 30 or something like that. The next characteristics I'll use is gate weave. So this is one that's really, really powerful again. You can't really see it on this shot just because it's a handheld shot. So what I might actually do is quickly stabilize this. So we've got our shot stabilized here. And so with the gate weave, then just to show you how real it can look, I'll do the Super 8, so really the most amount of gate weave. It just adds this level of jitter to your image that can be very realistic. Again, it's rare that I'll go Super 8 because it can be super jittery and I don't want to go to that level of film emulation. So I'll keep it on the 35, 65mm area, and to me it just looks pretty realistic. I think generally 35 is where I land. And this is another one where the gate weave can help you sell that film look incredibly well. And Dehancer's gate weave is a very, very realistic gate weave. I've seen other power grades that try to incorporate their own version, but Dehancer's version is very, very believable and realistic. I do think there's other interesting aspects to Dehancer where you have false color that's built in, which I think is really, really cool. If false color is something you do on set and you're used to looking at false color, having it built into Dehancer to get your exposure markings perfect is a massive, massive upgrade. I don't even think DaVinci has built-in false color. I don't think so. And the same as clipping indication, you can see where your darks are clipping, and just to have that built in to see all of the effects after you've applied your film profile, your print profile, is really cool. It's really powerful, and it's just I think it's a nice thing that the devs of Dehancer have added in there. So, and then one of the last things they have is total impact, which is really cool. You can really, if you feel like you've gone too heavy-handed with your film look, you can bring it back and find a happy medium. And it's always nice to be able to, again, have that customization, have that little bit of tweaking on a further level. It's always nice. Regardless, That is how quickly you can kind of craft a look together. Obviously, I took longer explaining all my steps, but if I were to move on to another clip, I can do that incredibly easy. So either I can obviously, let's do a really different clip. So obviously I can just easily apply this one, and right off the bat, it's looking pretty good. Or if I wanted to make a completely new look for this, if I just throw my regular node tree on. So like I said, I'm far from a professional colorist. I just know what I like. I've been studying colors in photography, obviously, for a long time. And I just know what I like in my images. So take all of my processes with a grain of salt. I'm obviously not a professional, but you know, there's always something to learn from everyone. I'm gonna push that. Think in here, I just want to add a little bit of exposure through here. Where's my film developer? Go up to color boost. Maybe add a little bit of contrast boost as well. That's looking pretty nice there. Close these. Go to my color head, enable. Shift these around. Just a slight little variations. Don't think I'm gonna put film grain on this, but definitely halation necessary. Moving down to halation. Film grain, I might skip for this one, but moving down to halation is definitely necessary. That's looking pretty all right. No remjets, looking good here. Bloom as well, 65 mil. Usually turn this down to 30. It's looking pretty good. And don't really touch film damage, don't really touch film breath. I guess one thing that I did miss was the overscan. Overscan is pretty situational as well, but again, a pretty powerful film emulation tool. I find myself just scaling this up because I don't really love the way the sprockets look, but it's very easy to scale the sprockets out. And even you have a ton of options here. So Ultra Panavision, for example, or widescreen, you have a lot of variation. I like the widescreen look, and I might scale it right around there. Or you can even go to Super 16. You just have a lot of control, but at the end of the day, it is just like an overlay. It's not super believable. Like, there are some overlays that are out of focus and are a little bit fuzzy, and it might feel like it's really the overscan of something that's been digitized. But this is still a pretty easy way if you just want to add a quick little border. That's kind of how quickly it is to how quickly you can build a look together. Again, super intuitive, super easy to use. And like I said, going into this software, I thought it would be a big learning curve to get a look that I like, but that really did not prove to be the case. You have so many options. You have so many different film profiles. If we just look at them all here, 200T, you have photo films here. You have Ilford, so you can go fully black and white if you want, HP5. Like, you just have a ton of options here. Cinestill, another classic. So there's definitely something in here for everyone. I think that's another really great thing about this program. So I really feel like the sky's the limit when it comes to this plugin. Just obviously, like I was saying, with the customization options, you can really build a perfect look that you want and then export that as a LUT and then take that with you to other programs, or even load that into certain professional cameras that allow you to overlay your own LUTs. So just having all of that functionality built in to something as simple and easy to use as Dehancer is incredible. But I think the even crazier thing about all of that is Dehancer recently just came out with a phone app. So all of this on your phone. So I just want to take the time to talk about that real fast. So armed with all of the same exact customizable options that the full-fledged premium plugin offers in DaVinci Resolve, and alongside the rise of Apple Log and DaVinci Resolve on the iPad, you might not even need a damn computer anymore. I think, like I was saying about the plugin, the biggest thing that this has going for it is the accessibility and how easy it is to pick up and manipulate. It's a pretty crazy feeling to be able to walk around with my phone, take a quick video of something interesting, and immediately be able to slap a film emulation on it and post it. So I think I'll share some of my final thoughts on the plugin and the app in, you guessed it, a pros and cons list. So I'm just gonna start with the bad news, the negatives, the cons. The first con that I can really think of really takes a hit to the accessibility, and that is just general processing power, both for the plugin and the app. On the plugin side, I have a semi-powerful computer and it already still takes so long to render these clips. And playback is really scuffed as well when you have all of the effects applied. The playback really plays at like 14 frames a second. And the same is true for the iPhone as well, just because it's obviously contending with mobile processing power. So the playback in the app and rendering the files takes a pretty long time. So the second con that I want to bring up is just the presence of a pretty destructive tool, and that tool is the input adjustment tool. So it's the first tab that you have when you open Dehancer in your phone app or the plugin, and this is where you can make direct adjustments to the exposure or the white balance. The only problem is I just find this tool seems to affect things on top of the image and not really within the image. There are also tabs like the exposure tool within the print profile, where if you slide that around, it really feels like you're changing the exposure of your print. It doesn't really feel like it's just happening on top. So whenever it comes to the exposure adjustments, that's kind of the tools I'll use, and I never use the input adjustment tool on the phone app or the plugin. So the last con that I want to point out is probably one of the most important things about this review, and is the price. So the plugin for DaVinci Resolve, Premiere Pro, or Adobe After Effects is $450. So it is a one-time payment, which is nice. You don't have to worry about renewing your subscription and getting the new updates. Once you have it, you're good. But it is a pretty hefty price tag, and it can be a lot to ask for someone to drop that amount of money on a plugin for DaVinci Resolve, even when DaVinci Resolve itself is $400, $500. And the phone app is also an annual subscription of, I believe, $100. I'll have to double check that, but also a pretty inaccessible price, which is a shame, just because if you were able to make these things cheaper, make the phone app a one-time purchase, I think you have an incredibly powerful and accessible tool for filmmakers to emulate film. So I just wanted to preface all of the cons before I moved into the pros. And I really just wanted to bring up the discussion about the price. And I just think it's interesting how it's morphed the plugin into being a little bit more of a higher end product, a product that is used by high budget commercials, music videos, and film productions. And I think it justifies it a little bit, the price tag. It shows that these productions are willing to pay the price of $450 because of how powerful this tool is, because of how incredibly accurate the film emulations can be and how close you can get to film. So if you're a film production considering using a film plugin for $450 or shooting a project on film for real, and if you know the prices of how much it costs to actually shoot film, the plugin becomes a lot more pleasing and a lot more justifiable to the budget. So with the background of it being a very high-end, expensive film emulation reserved for higher budget productions, I thought that using the program for this review would be incredibly complex. And I thought there would be a steep learning curve into getting a usable and good-looking image. But immediately using the plugin, I saw that that was not the case. It's so incredibly easy to use. And like I said, that's been my main theme throughout this whole video, and is my biggest pro, is the accessibility. How easy it is to use, how easy it is to pick up and learn, and just the intuitiveness of the film developing process, being able to choose your film stock, go to your print, add your colors, adjust your colors, and then add your film emulation effects like the halation and the grain and the bloom. It's so incredibly easy to craft a look. It's quick to craft a look, and it's easy to adjust across multiple clips. So the second con that I can think of is the customization options, the control it gives you over the certain adjustment tabs, and just overall the ability to build different recipes. There's really something in here for everyone with the amount of film profiles they have and amount of customization options you have. You can really see certain recipes and looks developed by filmmakers when they get their hands on this sort of tool. Another pro I want to highlight is the simplicity of the program, and the evidence of this is in the node tree. So I think the fact that it's contained to one node keeps your pipeline and your signal flow very clean, and it just makes making your specific adjustments clip to clip a lot easier versus some other power grades and LUTs that you can find online where they have tons of different nodes, and it's just really hard to kind of break that signal flow to create your own look, if that makes sense. So the last pro that I really wanted to highlight is one that I wanted to leave to the end because I think it's the coolest thing about Dehancer, and it's really a testament to the team that develops the film profiles and the film stocks. And that is, if you look at the Dehancer website, you can see on their blog that their process to developing these film profiles and the philosophy behind the entire plugin itself is really trying to stay true to the filmic process back in the 30s with black and white film, or the 50s, the 60s when you see tricolor film and the process of motion picture look building was created. So I think the fact that they stay very true to the development process, the print profiles, and the abundance of film stocks, and the way they analyze the film stocks, they'll shoot tons of test rolls and break down the actual color inside those rolls to be a very accurate depiction of that film profile. I just think that's really cool, and it shows that they really care about the idea of film emulation. It's not just a checklist of grain, halation, pretty colors, and I'm done. They show a commitment to the process of developing film and what the process was like back in, like I said, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. And I just think that's really cool to see a company show that kind of commitment and dedication to the look of film emulation. So those are my general thoughts after a couple weeks using the plugin. If I were to sum up my review in just a couple sentences, it's an incredibly easy to use, powerful, and intuitive film plugin. You just have to contend with the hefty price tag. Like I said, I knew of Dehancer before, but I really never thought I had the opportunity to test it out myself and give a general review. So I just want to thank Dehancer for that opportunity. And I just think it's really cool that they reach out to different creators for their thoughts, for an honest review. So they did supply the review license that I used for this, just to be transparent. But like I said at the top of the review, I'm far from a professional colorist. So this is as impartial as I can be, with the knowledge that I do have at my current age of 24. I think it's really interesting when I was preparing for this review, just the perspectives that I got on film emulation, and it really made me inspired to make a video investigating why we have this pursuit of film emulation, why we love these colors, these characteristics, the halation, the bloom, the grain, and really just try to break down the critical side of it and really analyze the subconscious part of our brains and why we're even doing this pursuit in the first place. Before I go, I just wanted to remind you that alongside this partnership, Dehancer actually gave me a nice little affiliate code. So if you like what you see in this review, if you feel like this plugin can really help with a project you have coming up, or in general, you really love the look of film emulation and you want this plugin, I have my own affiliate code, so you can use CAM2024 for 10% off your next purchase. And like we were talking about, it's a pretty hefty price tag, so any discount that you can really get is worth it for something like this. So CAM2024 at checkout on dehancer.com. So as always, if you have any questions or comments about this review, about Dehancer itself, feel free to leave them down below in the comment section, or you can always message me on Instagram at whoiscameronrollins. But otherwise, don't forget to like and subscribe, and peace.